As you're likely aware, Turkey finds itself entrenched in an enduring economic crisis, largely attributed to President Erdogan's unconventional monetary policies. The continuous depreciation of the lira and sparking inflation have been a persistent challenge. But Erdogan's victory in the May presidential contest offered some hope for the Turkish economy. A wave of expectation was ushered in when Erdogan quickly chose a new governor of the central bank and finance minister. They quickly turned to raising interest rates in an attempt to get the economy moving again.
Means that rates have got significantly higher to go from here. Are people talking about a much higher terminal rate? How far are they going to now go, do we think, in terms of this rate hiking cycle?
Right before today's race decision, I think the general expectation was that the Turkish Central Bank would probably end the year with a policy rate somewhere below 25%. But just today, the actual policy rate actually came to 25%, and it doesn't look like the Turkish Central Bank is going to stop its tightening cycle anytime soon. At least that's not the impression we got from today's race decision, the statement, the central bank statement.
Unfortunately, though, many were disappointed that their actions did not produce the desired effects. Inflation increased from 38% in June to a startling 65% in October, while the lira fell to a depressing low of just 27 versus the US dollar. So, in today's video, let's explore the causes of Turkey's financial crisis, analyze the drawbacks of the interest rate increases, and see what that means for Erdogan's chances in the approaching municipal elections. Generally speaking, central banks around the world raise interest rates in response to spikes in inflation. The goal of this action is to lower borrowing and spending, which will lower the demand for products and services. Price pressures are thereby reduced as a result of price stabilization or decline. Erdogan, though, takes a different tack. He claims that far than reducing inflation, higher interest rates actually make it worse. His argument is based on the notion that lower interest rates promote investment and expenditure, which in turn spur economic expansion and lessen inflationary pressures. Unfortunately, Turkey's economy has suffered as a result of this unorthodox approach. The Turkish lira has lost value due to Erdogan's preferred steady decrease in interest rates. A declining value of the lira creates a domino effect that raises the cost of imported commodities and fuels inflationary pressures. As was previously said, lower rates frequently encourage borrowing and spending, which can temporarily boost economic growth. But in Turkey's instance, this was a mistake. The Turkish lira's depreciation was facilitated by the ongoing decline in interest rates. Interest rates fell, making borrowing more affordable and stimulating investment and consumer spending. However, there was no commensurate increase in economic output or productivity to match the spending boom. As a result, there was a shortage of products and services and a rise in inflation. The devalued currency further compounded the issue. As the lira lost value against major currencies, the cost of imported goods surged. Turkey relies on imports for various commodities, including energy and raw materials. The increased cost of imports drove up prices domestically, exacerbating inflation and eroding the purchasing power of the Turkish population. Ultimately, the intended goal of curbing inflation through lower interest rates resulted in the opposite effect, aggravating inflationary pressures and weakening consumer purchasing ability. Erdogan tried to use foreign exchange reserves to artificially stabilize the value of the lira in the run-up to the elections, mainly to strengthen his political position. The government tried to support the value of the lira relative to other currencies by accumulating liras on foreign exchange markets. This is a short-term strategy to give the impression of stability. It is sometimes referred to as currency intervention or safeguarding the currency. On the other hand, over time, this tactic is unsustainable. It is expensive to artificially support the value of the lira with foreign exchange reserves.
FT calculations show Turkey's central bank has been propping up foreign currency reserves. That raises fear about the country's ability to defend itself in a fresh lira crisis. Reported net foreign reserves stood at $28.1 billion in early April, but the FT's analysis suggests this figure has been enhanced by an unusual surge in the use of short-term borrowing, or swaps. Strip these out and the total reserves fall to less than $16 billion. Investors already believed that the level of reserves was inadequate because of Turkey's need for dollars to cover debt and foreign trade. The use of swaps sharpens fears that the central bank has been burning through its hard currency to prop up the lira, and that without this support, the currency would be weaker.
Foreign exchange reserves, which are limited resources, are heavily used in this process. This short-term solution just creates a veneer of stability while depleting the vital reserves that ideally act as a buffer for the nation's financial stability. As witnessed in Turkey, this approach led to a brief stabilization of the lira's value, but once the artificial support was withdrawn, the lira swiftly depreciated again. Important economic positions underwent substantial adjustments following Erdogan's election victory. Important positions like the governor of the central bank and the minister of finance were filled by new appointees. It was anticipated that these recently chosen executives would implement a change in economic strategy to address the difficulties facing Turkey's economy.
Meanwhile, Turkey's central bank has nearly doubled its main interest rate in a major reversal from the unconventional economic policies originally promoted by President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The bank hiked its key rate to 15% from 8.5% after it had promised to simplify and improve policies that past Erdogan governments used to try and weather Turkey's worst economic crisis since the 1990s.
One significant adjustment was the implementation of a plan that involved raising interest rates. In the past, central banks have frequently employed rate increases as a tactic to combat inflationary pressures. But even with the shift in the leadership and the recognition of the necessity for interest rate increases, the changes implemented were insufficiently bold or quick to address the quickly escalating inflation rate. Erdogan faces a difficult decision as he balances his political status with the demands of the economy. On the one hand, significant interest rate increases are desperately needed to control inflation, keep the currency stable, and bring about economic stability. Significant interest rate increases do, however, carry some possible hazards, chief among them the possibility of starting a recession. Erdogan is concerned about a recession because it might have negative effects on the Turkish economy and undermine his political base, particularly in light of the next municipal elections. Economic downturns can result in job losses, slower economic growth, and more hardship for the populace, all of which could be detrimental to Erdogan's government. The Turkish government is faced with a significant economic policy conundrum and is at a crossroads. One course of action is to aggressively raise interest rates, which would have the dual goals of reducing inflation and boosting confidence among foreign investors. But there's a real chance that this strategy will lead to a recession and public backlash. A recession may result in a slowdown in the economy, job losses, and more problems for the general public, endangering the basis of support for the government. The cautious route, which puts short-term political popularity first, is the alternative. To preserve instant voter satisfaction, this tactic calls for cautious interest rate modifications. However, this might worsen the current economic crisis, resulting in protracted inflationary pressures and a decline in Turkey's standing in the international economic arena. However, despite the current challenges and the complexities surrounding economic policies, there remains hope for the people of Turkey. Economic landscapes are dynamic, and while the nation faces hurdles, resilience and adaptability are inherent strengths. Turkey boasts a robust and diverse economy, a skilled workforce, and vast potential for growth and development. The administration has the chance to set the path for long-term sustainable growth and short-term issues by combining strategic policies with cautious economic measures. Through the creation of an atmosphere that is supportive of investment, creativity, and economic stability, Turkey will be able to bounce back from its turbulent past. Hope lies in the resilience and ingenuity of the Turkish people, the potential for sound economic reforms, and the country's capacity to regain global confidence. With that, let's end the video. This is Visionomics signing out.